Winterfell, the end of the month. The raven reached Winterfell just before the first real snow. Its wings beat through the morning chill, skimming across the frosted battlements before coming to rest on the rookery tower. Maester Luwin untied the scroll, noting the Martell seal, sun and spear impressed in red wax, and read the missive as the fire cracked in the hearth behind him. He did not hurry. The message was short and to the point. When he entered the great hall, he found Lord Eddard Stark seated near the fire, young Rickon on his lap, and Bran playing with a wooden sword a few feet away. The firelight flickered over Ned's face, catching the silver in his beard. "There's word from Dorne," Luwin said simply, offering the tired parchment. Ned took it, brow furrowed as he read. He looked every bit of his age now, and every bit of his office. After a long moment, he exhaled through his nose. "So, it's done." Catelyn looked up from where she was stitching Sansa's old gown into something smaller for Arya. "What's done?" Ned handed her the letter without a word. Her hand slowed over the page as her lips moved silently. "He's giving up Winterfell," she said at last, voice sharp. "He's sure he wants to do this?" Ned nodded. "In return for Sunspear. He becomes Arianne's prince consort and effective heir to Dorne after her." He paused, considering. "Unless of course they have children. Why would he?" She stopped herself. "No, he's a man grown. It's his choice, and we shall respect it." "His choice, and Doran Martell's offer," Ned said quietly. As much as he agreed that they can only respect Robb's decisions, he understood that it wasn't being made in a vacuum. Plans and pieces that he didn't understand were being moved at this very moment. That much he did know. Sansa, seated by the window, had risen at the mention of Dorne. "Is Arianne beautiful?" she asked, half dreaming, her voice pitched up as if in wonder. "A real-life princess." "She's a Martell," Arya muttered, sticking her head out from under the table. "I bet she carries a poisoned dagger in her boot. I'm sure she has the finest dresses on this side of the narrow sea, and all the flowers and perfumes that money can buy." Sansa sighed, looking a bit disappointed. "What I would give to enjoy some of that." "She's not from a song or story," replied Catelyn, folding the letter, giving her eldest daughter a glance. "She's real. She's older. And very clever, by the sound of it." Arya grinned. "So, you're saying she's dangerous?" Catelyn shot Arya a look, which caused her to roll her eyes before getting up and heading for the kitchens. She wanted to eat. Things were now boring without Robb or Jon around to mess with and tease. Luwin moved to walk with her, and they left the room. Bran had stopped swinging his toy sword, turning to look at his parents. "So, does that mean Robb is not coming home?" Ned looked at his son, then exchanged a glance with Catelyn. "Not for a while," Ned said softly. "But he will one day. He just has a new home to grow into now." Bran frowned. "But what about Grey Wind?" "Grey Wind will stay with him," Catelyn said gently, stroking Bran's hair. "They belong together." She didn't consider mentioning Jon at all. Ned rose from his seat, setting Rickon down, who moved sleepily to his mother, who welcomed him with open arms. He crossed the hall slowly, staring out at the gray courtyard through the arched glass windows. "We now have to adjust our plans," he said quietly, mostly to himself. "Robb is no longer our heir." Catelyn joined him, carrying Rickon, the gown left behind where she had sat. Then her gaze shifted to her next eldest son, who went back to fighting imaginary enemies and wildlings. "How do we explain this to the bannermen? To the North?" "With honesty and respect. He's still our son, still Stark, though he may wear Martell colors. He'll always be a wolf, no matter how much silk and perfume they may try to dress him in." Catelyn sighed as she nuzzled Rickon in her arms. She missed her eldest boy. It was uncanny and queer to not see him every day, to not hear his voice or see the shared Tully hair he had. She hoped he knew what he was doing. Back in Dorne, in the warmth of Sunspear's stables, the scent of hay, leather, dirt, and warm blood filled the air. Robb moved with the ease of long familiarity that came with his extended stay, leading Arianne down a narrow stone stair that opened into the kennels below. A few Martell hounds stirred as they passed, but it was the soft, padded steps of something larger at the back that echoed the loudest. "Here?" Arianne asked, raising a raven-painted brow. "Not in the courtyard, not amongst the flowers or market. You bring your betrothed to the bowels of the castle." She batted her eyes while giving Robb a hot look. "Is this the part where you steal me away and elope back north now that we are far out of sight?" The thought of it sent a light rush of warmth through her, which surprised her. She couldn't help but imagine his strong hands wrapping around her as he threw her onto a saddle. Robb smirked over his shoulder with a gentle chuckle. Tempting, but no. He's more of himself here. I'd rather he meet you without the weight of pageantry and politics. She followed, her fingers brushing the hilt of her knife hidden in the confines of her sleeve. As much as she liked Robb, she wasn't a fool and won't let her guard down so easily. Her braid fell over one shoulder, dark as sable, a ruby glinting with the torchlight at her throat. Even the dark and musty atmosphere of the kennels still couldn't diminish her presence. They came to a stop, side by side. Robb whistled twice. Gray wind emerged from the far end, golden eyes gleaming in the dim light. His fur caught the lantern glow like tarnished silver, and his low growl thrummed like a drumbeat. He sniffed the air warily. Arryn halted. She had seen wolves before, thin, sand-bred beasts of the Dornish mountains, usually reddish and brown in color, the size of an adolescent pony at largest. But this creature was no mere wolf. This was a northern myth, standing and breathing and listening. He is, she murmured, eyes taking him in, very large. Quite the understatement. Greywind would probably be looking horses in the eyes in another year. Robb gave another soft whistle, beckoning with a hand for him. Greywind's ears flicked. He padded forward cautiously, nose twitching. Arryn held still, gaze steady. Does he always growl first? With most people, Robb said. He didn't like Prince Oberyn. Bit his boot a little. That sounds like an endorsement, she said dryly. My uncle always got along best with dead animals. Usually for poisons and experiments and the like. Robb stepped closer and crouched beside Greywind. He murmured something softly, too low to catch, and the direwolf's growling ceased. His tail didn't wag. He wasn't that sort of beast, but he leaned forward and sniffed at the hem of Arryn's thin gown which blew back with his heavy breath. You smell like oranges and tea, Robb said, nodding his head to Greywind. Is that a compliment in the north? It's a compliment for a wolf, isn't it? She laughed. It is. Though she wondered how Robb would know what the direwolf would think. Greywind moved in a slow circle around her, head hunched down as he took in another whiff of her. Arryn let him inspect her, turning with him gently. She didn't flinch when his snout came close to her fingers. She extended one hand, fingers steady. He nudged them with his nose, then gave a rough, slobbery lick. She saw Robb exhale from the corner of her eye, some invisible tension leaving his shoulders. Well? She asked, lifting her chin up. Do I pass? He trusts you. That's more than I can ask for. Robb gave a cheeky grin. Though him not eating you is a good start as well. Arryn rolled her eyes at that, as she crouched to get a better look at the dire wolf. I've always liked animals better than lords and nobles, she said, brushing her fingers along Greywind's back. They don't plot or lie. They don't make false promises or half-truths. Neither do I. She turned her head. Not even to yourself? Robb opened his mouth, then hesitated. Sometimes yes, he admitted. But not about you. Arryn's face softened. Good. Because I'm very good at spotting lies and remembering them. Robb smiled at that, offering up a rag for her to wipe her hand clean with. Later that day, with the heat of the sun bleeding out beyond the horizon, Arryn found herself in one of the smaller courtyards that connected to the gates, where the shadows ran long and the air still held a trace of warmth. Jon Snow stood there, tending to one of the sand steeds the Martells kept for guests. His hair was loose and long, sweat sticking to his brow, his dark leathers and cloth dusty. The stallion nudged him for another apple, which he happily supplied. Arryn wasn't sure what to make of him. She knew that he was her betrothed's bastard brother and the one shame of the honorable Ned Stark. He was quite comely and gentle, which she knew only lured Tyene in, who enjoyed teasing someone with no experience. She also understood that Robb trusted him implicitly and didn't like for him to stand away and aside from him. He was still an enigma. He glanced her way. You spoil him, Arryn said very matter-of-fact. I like him better than most people. Jon replied back smoothly, heading turning only a fraction to acknowledge her, his focus still on the horse. He's well-bred, very beautiful. You've been pretty quiet since the feast, she observed, giving the stallion a quick look. And you rarely speak to me. Jon nodded as though seeing no problem with that. You outrank me, and I like some peace and quiet. Arryn nodded at that. She may feel the same way if she had Tyene hounding her every day looking for a bite. I outrank most of this castle. That hasn't stopped me before. I talk to whoever I like. He looked at her for a moment. You're not what I expected. Because I'm not delicate, spoiled, and docile? Jon chuckled at that. As far as nobility goes, she is definitely not as spoiled as most, though she still has no real idea of what life was like without her high status and privilege. Not that he was going to say that. He wasn't stupid. Because you make him smile, and that's more important than anything else to me. She tilted her head. You're close, aren't you? He's more than a friend. He's my brother, even if I'm a Snow. He passed the horse another apple from his bag. She paused for a moment, unsure where to press or what to ask. She settled her mind on something easy enough. What was he like as a boy? Jon smirked. Awful at dancing. Our Septa said he moved like a wet bear or an old moose. He used to fake illness and injury to get out of lessons. Sometimes Lady Stark had to grab him by the heels and haul him out of bed when he was too committed to the act. Arryn had no idea what a moose was, but she got the idea. She laughed. Truly. He was always serious as well, trying so hard to be a man before his time. Jon gave a short laugh. So as long as being a man means no dancing. He still does that a bit, she said wryly. Though she would say that he was a pretty good dancer if asked, he didn't embarrass himself at her father's feast. He's better at it now? That's the difference. She looked at Jon closely. He still held an anxious posture in his shoulders at being addressed by her. This was the longest they've talked so far, and they've been here for a little more than a month. Do you miss Winterfell? I miss it. It's home. But here it's warmer. Not just the sun. He glanced up to the darkening sky as dusk loomed over the city. You like Dorne? Aside from how bastards are viewed, and that I don't have to keep an eye out for Lady Stark, I like what it's doing to him. Oh. She couldn't help the smile, though she noticed his aversion for Robb's mother and filed that away in her mind. You think I suit him? She hoped that she did. Jon nodded. Even if neither of you has figured it out yet. You're learning each other. That takes time. That's my only good advice. I'm no expert on courtship. She glanced toward the distant tower where Robb rested. You helped shape him. You're welcome to him, Jon said with a crooked grin. I'm not the one marrying his ugly mug. I intend to keep him, she shot back, a smirk dancing on her face. It sounds better every day.